Hey guys, Brett Feig here with another UnTECH video. Welcome to the summer of 2020. I know it's been a while, almost 2 years since I've put out any content. My son just turned 2, so I'd like to say I have a little bit more time on my hands, but not really the case. But anyways, this video is a little bit more about the why and less about the how of web scraping, kind of taking the art of web scraping and applying it in a slightly different direction, and that would be more geared towards a job search. So why would you even want to do this? Well, this is a really great way to pull down a bunch of jobs from a bunch of different web pages and do a little bit of an analysis to determine which companies are really actively hiring. And that could be a great way to focus in on your job search, especially if you happen to be a recruiter, which this video is sort of being made for. So check it out, and I hope you like it. Hey guys, quick video here on kind of a different application for web scraping. Let's say you're doing some research, you're trying to uncover a few companies who are likely to hire or are hiring more than others. I'm going to show you a couple different ways to get that information, scrape it out, pull a basic pivot table, and just get a sense on where the frequencies lie. Now, we're going to go through a couple different programs. Let's start here with this website built in New York City, which I like because of how simplistic it's laid out. It's quite easy from a web scraping standpoint. However, if you don't live in New York City, or, I'll show you a couple different other job boards as well. So let's say we're doing this and we're just going to leave it on all jobs because for a case in point, I don't really care the type of job, but feel free to filter. And you see it gives us a total of 1,187 positions, but what it's not telling me is sort of a breakdown by frequency. I'm not seeing which companies are being presented more than others. So I want you, whenever you start thinking about web scraping, to start thinking about the easiest way to the most difficult way. And in this case, I always check to see if we could cut and paste, right? Clearly, it's not tabular in that sort of function, so it's not going to easily transpose into an Excel document. So let's check our first easiest program, which I like, Instant Data Scraper. And it loads up, and I'm looking at it, and it looks like it's giving us what we want, right? We got the job title, which I somewhat care about, and we have the company, which I absolutely care about, and the hours and stuff along those lines. A lot of miscellaneous stuff, but it's good, it works. And it looks like it's capturing most of it. So let's click the locate next button and tell it where that next button is. Click on it and go back into it. And let's just start crawling for the meantime. And as you see, it's sort of paginating page to page. It's scraped 81 so far. And through the magic of pausing videos, we're now up to 847. So I'm going to stop this in just a second because I think we're starting to get the point here. Let's stop the crawl and let's download that in CSV. There you go, it downloads there. Now, let's reset this for a second. We're going to go back to that file in a moment and go to the second part. But let's just say, for the case of argument, Instant Data Scraper doesn't work, right? For some reason, it's not getting what you're looking for. You've tried try another table, and you've clicked through that, but it's just not giving you what you want, right? Fails you. So you got to go on to a more difficult program. And for that, in terms of free, I like Data Miner. Now, this is an absolutely free account. I don't have a paid version, and it's a little bit more complicated, and you'll see why in a second. The build is a little bit more intense. So we're going to have to create a new recipe here, and that gives you a couple different options here. One is list or details. In this case, it's going to be a list because we're getting a list. I guess there's no real better way to say it than that. And the first thing we need to define is the rows. Now, this gets a little complicated because as you click the row button, it gives you a bunch of different things to highlight and ask you to press the shift button in order to select what you're looking for. Now, in this case, you go all types of wrong and you click the whole box and it says row, and you click row, and all of a sudden, all the stuff highlighted in green. it's a clear sign you've done something wrong because it's essentially treating every green box like a different row, and that's not what we want. And you could try this button up and down. That doesn't seem to do anything. Let's set that back to where it was. And it takes a little bit of playing around with. But what I found works is kind of just highlighting this paragraph right here, and it calls it a full job row. And as you see, as I click the full job row, it's giving us what we want. Now this becomes important because as you scroll down, and let's see if I can find this for you. Let me save this. You'll start seeing rows that are not full job rows, that are extensions, almost like jobs listed under a company. And I'm going to try to find some examples of that. Here you go, right over here. These are not full job rows as defined by this, and it's not being highlighted, which is great. It means it's sort of not, it's giving us exactly what we want. And if we ever wanted to test it, we'll do so in the next step. So since it looks like it's getting everything, that's perfect. We're going to move on to the columns. Now, just to give a bit of an explanation for this, these aren't full rows and they don't have the main details we want, which is, of course, the company name. It's sort of a sub row listed under the main row here. But if we tried to scrape this as a row, we just get VP of Sales Operations, Greater New York City. It wouldn't be linked to a company, which is not what we want. Now, if we got the rows right, the columns are pretty straightforward. You're going to find, let's say I want to get the title here, and you see it automatically finds job title. If that wasn't the case, I could select this, which will move up a rank and will show me bigger swabs of information. But since that's actually correct, we're just going to call it job title and going to click next. I don't care about naming it here for this demonstration. And here, let's see if we click find, we just want the company. Now this is great because it has param value. I click that and I know instantaneously it's wrong because as you see, it's multiple things are being highlighted. So in this case, I am going to click the select parent, and here I see company title, which clearly gives me what we want. Now, the reason I chose this site is because it is so cleanly laid out. It's not always the case. Companies don't always name their fields, with the same IDs as this one does. So this makes it really, really easy. And if there's anything else I want here, we'll go ahead and select that now under our next one. No, maybe I want the location. Again, this is pretty similar. Neither this one nor that one gives us what we want, right? So we're going to try the select parent. And look what we have here. We have location, which is perfect. Now, if I didn't know, I could do icon label. No. Info label. There's way too many things that are boxed off. Div is going to give everything, which isn't going to be right. So it's going to be location. Perfect. Now it gets a little bit more challenging here because you're going to have to tell it manually how to click the next button. To do that, I'm just going to have to move this to the other side of my screen for a second. And I want to tell it that. So I'm clicking in the nav box here. I'm going to find it, but it doesn't always find it correctly. Here it thinks it's an A, and an A tag is kind of the generic name for any link. So when I click it, it's going to show every single thing you could click on the page, which is clearly not what we want. If I go select parent, it does give me a page next and a page nav, which seems like it's both the next and the previous. And then it gives me an element type LI, which seems like all of them. Let's see if I click more than one. Interesting. So here, if I click page next, I'm like, oh, that's perfect. It's named exactly how we want it. But then I click navigate. That's not really working. So let's go back and try that structure again. What if I do page next with the LI? So LI page next. Let's see if that works. And let's do test. Nothing. So here's where we have to sort of go into it, and this is why it's a little bit more confusing. But we know two things. One, that there's an ID element selector, page next, and we know that the generic link tag is an A. So let's go ahead and add an A to that. So page next A. Now what's interesting is you could see it's lighting up, right? If I do page next A without a space, thank you, Chelsea. nothing's lighting up. However, if I do page next space and then I put hey, you see that big box over here is now relegated to this small box, which seems like it's correct. If I do test nav, it's now on page 4, now on page 5, and I could, save it and run it from here, right? I can run the recipe, which is going to bring up this box, and it's going to simultaneously, when I do next page, and let's start pagination, it's going to automatically click on that over and over again, which again, let's see if we could show that as it's happening. And you can see it's pausing 5 seconds between each, which is super annoying from a recording function. But either way, we could let this run all the way through, and that's another way we could get that information. So we arrive at sort of the same information. Now, I know what you're thinking. I don't live in New York. I don't know what this built-in is. I don't even recruit tech. How does this work for my job board? So let's go through a couple and see which ones we can and cannot use. On the cannot use part of the coin, let's take a look at LinkedIn jobs and let's see the reason that that's going to be a little bit problematic here. Now, when I go into LinkedIn jobs, let's say I do a search for recruiter in Miami, Florida. What's going to cause us trouble is this dual screen sort of layout, but more importantly, there's no next pagination button, which is, we could probably set it up to work, but it's going to be a little confusing, and we're going to have to dive into the code over here and figure out how to link it to the next page. We're going to have to figure out how it determines what's current and the next one. And that's going to be for another video, because that's going to dive into really deducing down some of these HTML and CSS codes. Not going to be fun. Let's get out of that. Let's check out what's another popular one. Let's check out Indeed for a second. And let's type in associate in Miami. All right, I figure that will give us a lot. And let's see if this page will be able to be scraped by similar matters. So we do have a next button. That's promising. It's given us 6,000 results. Again, we try the easiest thing, which is cut and paste, but that doesn't look like it's going to work. And just for a test and point, let's get that out of here. You could see it from a previous one. Annoying. If we were to try to cut and paste that, it's going to look all funky. Yeah, that's crazy. Even if we try to do like a paste just text, you could see everything's on a different line. It's not going to be easily sortable. Too much Excel wizardry needed to make that work, so that's not going to be viable. We go to our first easiest option, instant data scraper, and it doesn't really give us what we want. Let's try another table. No. What's this getting us? I don't know. Clearly not what we want, though. That one doesn't work. That one doesn't work. That one looks like it should work, but as you see, the output is putting everything in rows. One giant long row. So that's not going to work. So let's clear the screen for a second, and let's see if we can't figure out how to do this with Data Miner. First, is there a public recipe? Looks like someone created Indeed one. Let's see what that looks like. Look, so don't try to remake the wheel. Someone has already created a recipe for us. They started by identifying the rows, which was a dot row, which is great. Column, it looks like it gets the job title, the URL, the title, the company, which is what we want, job summary, date posted, and job location. And what I'm looking for over here, just a quick eye glance over, is that it's coming up with consistent results every time, meaning there's 15 rows and it's getting 15 of everything. And second reason we can't do Indeed is because the lovely guys over at Data Miner has made Indeed a premium website to scrape. So that's not going to work for our free method. So let's go into the next one. Let's check out Glassdoor. Right. Let's type in I don't know, associate. Right. Figure that would get us the most amount of. Great, 6,000. Interesting. Can we cut and paste it? We already know these are going to be very unlikely. Can we use Instant Data Scraper? Instant Data Scraper on the first try is getting us 30 rows. And I see that we have, I'm going to guess it's 30. I don't feel like counting. It's getting us the company. It's getting us the title, the state. It's pretty getting us everything. That looks like it works really well. Let's see if it'll work with pagination. Let's tell it where this next button is. And let's see if that works. Let's do start crawling. Page 2, it's got us another 30. We see this number going up right over here, right? Rows collected. Keeps going up. I like it. That works. We don't really need to go any further. We were able to scrape Glassdoor pretty easily. I don't know, what's another popular one out there? Simply Hired, maybe? Let's try Simply Hired. Let's try Baker. That's a huge. All right. So let's see if that, we know we can't cut and paste. Let's just try Instant Data Scraper, see if that works. It's getting the card title. Seems like the title. It's getting us 19 rows. Does it get us a company name? Gets us a location. ShopRite, confidential. Interesting. It's getting us most of them. It seems like it's arbitrarily leaving off the first. Yeah, it's leaving off one, but it's good enough. Looks good. Let's see if we could handle the next pagination. Okay. Let's go back into it and do start crawling. Now we're looking for either denominations of 19 or 20 at each page. 34, 53, 75, 78. Okay, so it looks like it got us all it can, which is about 78. Is there any way to verify that there were only 78 results? Let's see how off we are. 58 results, and it got us 78. Which is interesting. I'm not quite sure why. But it looks like it got us most of the way there. And we could always take a look at the file if we want to see why it didn't get us or adjust it from there. But let's assume that worked. All right. Now, let's go back to our first example for a second. Now that we have this data, right? And we're going to use the built-in one just because you got about 1,000 of them. And this is what we're left with. It seems like there's a lot that we don't need here. And what we're kind of curious about is kind of two things here for this analysis. I want the company name, which prize out leap, which seems like it's column D. Let's call this column. Let's just rename it company here. And Diego, let's just call this posted date for a second. Anything else we need here? No, not for this analysis. So what we're going to do is highlight everything. And we're just going to do a sloppy pivot table. Insert pivot table. If you've ever heard about pivot tables, you've never done a pivot table, and people said they need a pivot table for a job interview. Well, here you go. I'm teaching you how to do a pivot table in about 3 easy steps. Now that we've done that, or we're interested in this company, I'm going to paste that into the rows and company into the values. What we're essentially doing is giving us the value of how many times each company is listed. I'm going to highlight the top and just Control Shift down, which is going to highlight everything. And I'm going to sort it by Z to A, which is going to give us the top companies by percentage. Right? So if in this case I wanted to target companies that were doing the most amount of hiring because I think there might be a need for them to hire my field or whatever the case is, I could see that that goes to Via, Rio, Ad Marketplace, VTS, Paxos, IEX, Tempest, and Quad Play. In fact, everything above this line has 10 more. If I'm curious about sort of when it was posted, it's a little bit harder, only because of how it lists the post dates. So it's hard to list, but let's say I only wanted recent. I could drag that into the filter date and select multiple, unselect all. And let's say I only want ones that are 10, 11, and 12 day. You know what? Let's say I want it more recent. I want to see ones that were only a day ago and hours ago. So let's go 21, 20 hours, 19 hours, 18 hours, 17 hours. Oh, those are days. Let's keep the hours. You know what? Let's just type in hours here. Okay, so this is going to filter just on hours. So if I do that, I could see the 30 jobs that were posted in the last day. Maybe I want to target those because they're more recent. Why this is difficult is because it's actually listed as 10 days ago, and you know, Excel doesn't know the difference between 21 hours ago or featured. So it's just, you know, an easier way might be is to eliminate the ones that are, you know, very old. So 2 weeks ago, don't care about. Let's say I don't care about 13 days, 12 days, or 11 or 10 days. I want things that are less than 10 days. And there you go. Here's the companies that are sort of more recent. So that's it. And you'd assumably be able to do that no matter where you get your data from, as long as you have a company. And that's it, really, a company and a title name. I could also do it by title, but that's just going to be a little bit less reliable because what the hell do I care? I guess if I was sorting for a certain title, but titles are so different. But you could sort the data in any way you want. So I hope that helps. Kind of two different ways to go about doing it. If you're interested in kind of more in-depth usage of data miner and specifically, there's plenty of videos on my page for that. Check it out. Thanks.